The third principle of strategic case making is to remind people of what they lose if they sit on the sidelines. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this issue of loss because it's really important. In fact, this issue of loss is probably most important. I think about it in terms of its relationship to the first principle, but this third one is really important too. Loss aversion, the idea that people are afraid to lose anything, is extraordinarily important. I would say probably loss aversion is the single dominating force in all of human decision making, which is why it's important to navigate around that very carefully. Let me give an example. When most people think about issues, for example, of affordable housing, and they think about, right, one of those impediments to action that we talked about before, a part of the challenge is they think in their head, they are in favor of the idea of housing affordability, but they think in their heads about all the things that could possibly go wrong, right? If they lean into this idea of affordable housing, I'm going to lose some property value, right? Potentially, if the neighborhood takes a different turn, I'm going to lose my favorite parking space. I'm going to lose the vista that I've been used to. Maybe there are people in the community that I'm not used to that will now, right, take over my neighborhood and all the things that I love to do and be in the neighborhood. And they mentally list all of the things they think they could lose in this conversation. And when they do that, right, they literally talk themselves out of leaning forward in the value around appreciating the importance of affordable housing. So it is critically important that we address that early on in the conversation. You got to get people up and over that. Otherwise, your conversation is going to dead end in that conversation about loss. So the way that you do that is to balance out the conversation. You got to tell them what you lose if you sit on the sidelines. Listen, if it's about affordable housing, you may be afraid of what you're going to lose if affordable housing is built in your neighborhood. But what I'm here to tell you is you should be more afraid of what you're going to lose if we don't build affordable housing in this community, right? The fact that homelessness, as for example, is growing across the country. Nobody wants to see folks or experience, right, folks lying in the street in many parts of the country, defecating in the street, right, because they have no other place to go. Nobody wants to see the decay of their communities, in part because we aren't responding to a crisis that is rising. You actually have a stronger stake in helping us to solve this issue than waiting and hoping that maybe it won't touch you in some possible way. So when you talk about all the things, right, remind people of what you lose if you sit on the sidelines, you balance that perspective. And now that fear doesn't engulf me quite as much because now I'm balancing, hey, listen, right, I actually have a stronger stake in solving this than letting it linger, right, and not becoming involved. Loss aversion is the single dominating force in all of human decision making, and it is incredibly important that we as case makers understand and know how to balance that so that we get people to lean forward and out of their fear and into a conversation that's much more constructive.